How you doing, everybody? Chris Free and Bennett here with Vancouver Film School's Storyteller Studio podcast. Today we've got one of those rare guests that we don't always get in the studio when they have this specific timeline of experience and proximity to the school. I'm sitting down with a great guy named Matt Toner. Matt is the CEO of Biba, but long before that, and we're going to get into it, Matt was a student here at Vancouver Film School, a very, very proud alumnus, and then would come back years later and join these hallowed halls as a member of the faculty. And of course, after that, he would go on to do some incredible stuff in the industry. A great storyteller who's now probably among the most innovative people I've even read about in the last 24 months. CEO of Biba, Mr. Matt Toner. Thanks for coming in today, Matt.
My pleasure. It's always nice to come home.
Hey, man, it's great to have you here. And let me start off by just saying, you know, we're going to talk about what you're doing at Biba. I'm a parent. I got two boys.
How old?
So what you're doing is like in our wheelhouse. Talk about high energy kids, and what you're doing is on the crucible of where that frontier of gaming has to go. But I think it is so cool that Time Magazine recognizes you. I think it was last year. You were among the best inventions of the year. Fast Company magazine puts you in their most innovative companies of the year. I mean, you are in some seriously heavy-hitting A-League media. Are you surprised by that success and that recognition?
I think you would probably have to be surprised because, you know, it's a small Vancouver startup. Being recognized at that level, it's not common. I think it's probably safe to say.
Yeah.
But I think the reason why, and I think about this a lot, like why us? I'm sure you could probably find 101 inventions that we would make the cut, or the 102nd invention, depending on your perspective. I think it comes down to the industry kind of wants something like us to exist. They kind of want the Biba story to be true.
Yeah.
For people that don't know what Biba is.
Yeah, please walk them through it. Yeah, and by the way, I may cut to some B-roll while you're talking about it to show the demo, but go ahead.
Yeah, that's fine. Like I said, I got a face for radio, so cut away. It's perfect. But what Biba is a Spark playground system. So we know from having worked in the video game industry for a number of years, we've become very good at putting kids on couches and developing really muscular thumbs, right?
Yeah.
Biba was intended to take those same tricks and use them to get kids back outside on the playground, doing physical activities, social activities, imaginative activities, with just a little bit of screen time on the parent's smartphone to give them the rewards they're accustomed to. So it turns out it works pretty well. We did some field tests with kids on normal playgrounds, and you know, your kids are how old?
My oldest Fox is 12 and Hawk is 3.
Okay, so you're on either end of the spectrum of playground usage. So you've gone through your heavy user years with your oldest son.
Yep.
And now you're getting back into those with your second born.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you guys won't know, the guys in the studio, if you haven't got kids in your life, you walk by playgrounds, you don't even see them. They're invisible. Once you have kids, they're our fixture.
They're like, you flag them on your map, on your app, where all the playgrounds are going to be. And the good ones, the good ones, the bad ones. And what you guys have is you've got like Biba playgrounds. Like what I love on your app is you can go and you can find the ones that are I guess, authorized or branded to work in conjunction with your app.
That's right.
And again, we're going to flash to it several times during the interview so that people can really wrap their head around it. Because this is, like, I would say maybe about 4 years ago, and I know Fox, my son, and I were late to it, but we got into geocaching.
Yeah,
okay?
Sure.
And the promise of geocaching seemed really exciting. This idea that the technology, the game, if you want to call it that, the gamification of that treasure hunt would be really cool. We were really excited about it, and then it was like, it just didn't happen. We would go to places and the stuff wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
It was really like a whole lot of like it wasn't exciting. And so I thought, I don't know. And then Nintendo on many occasions with the Wii tried to make, and I think they're still in a lot of ways trying to break that fourth wall of inactivity and screen time with activity.
Yeah.
I see the Ring. I've seen. I'm a PlayStation guy. Me and Fox have tried, Beatmaster and all those things, but they just don't have the same fun appeal that's coming out of Biba. Like you guys, I think you really nailed it. And we're going to put a link down there for Android and iOS devices so people can really see this, because this is an endorsement from a parent that is saying, this is unbelievable. You got to try this. Were you conscious of some of the prehistory of that in the development? Surely you must have been. And did you feel like is that even a possible thing to bridge that gap? Like maybe video games are meant to be,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, we were of two minds because on the one hand, there was this history of people trying to do things in the space with some success and a lot of not so successful
Sure.
ideas. But I think, even to get back to your first question, I think the industry wants this to exist. I think we all recognize that we need a digital augmentation that gets kids into the real world. And, we were so delighted when Pokemon Go came around.
Right.
It suddenly made things
Yeah.
so easy for us. We were
Yeah.
actually talking with the guys at Niantic before they launched, like, oh, we love what you guys are doing. We're so busy, we're behind. But after we launch, it'll calm down and we'll talk to you then.
Yeah.
And of course, they launched and it blew up.
Yeah.
Right. But people love this idea of this blended reality, mixed reality experience. And technology's come along and consumer adoption has come along to the point where it's very easy to do right now. So we felt that the technology had hit and the penetration of smartphones had hit at the right time. The challenge we had was with the playground companies themselves, because some people, some families, some companies, some cities really looked at playgrounds as like a last bastion of screen-free places,
zones. Yeah, of course.
even though they
Right,
were
right.
putting in free Wi-Fi at the same time. There's like
Yeah.
this real contradiction. So that's what we still find is a bit of a challenge, where occasionally you have a community that just says, listen, we don't want that here for whatever reasons. Okay, we can have a conversation. Or in one case, in this small town in New Zealand, we were putting in a playground, there was one woman, like a soccer mom in the town, that decided we were basically Satan incarnate.
Oh, for
And
sure.
mounted this big social media pushback campaign to try to get the playground taken down. And I think the only thing that
What do you do with that?
well, it's like social media 101. You try to have a conversation. And I think the winning line was, listen, the playground works just fine if you don't want to use our app. It works just like a playground. But why would you want to deny your neighbor, who maybe wants to use this for their child that doesn't get enough exercise, the chance to do so? And that usually gets them to go, okay, you got a point. I don't want it. My kids
That's
don't want
right.
it. That's fine.
And sure enough,
but you would, so why not, right?
do you feel compelled to, is I mean, this is so fascinating, Matt. Do you consider yourself at a certain point? I wonder if you are crossing that threshold of game designer, and do you feel a responsibility to activity and health, or is it about innovation to you? Which is, when you look back at your corporate history and your even your evolution from, I mean, you started as a writer, so there's a storyteller at your core, and then you've been in game design. You really understand the technology side of it. Where does innovation trump your whatever might be the social pressure to make a healthy, positive app?
Well, I think our investors definitely feel the
Right.
karmic obligation
Sure.
to make a healthy social app, because a couple of them are leaders in the game industry, and they spend a lot of their career putting kids on couches, and they have young families of their own, and
Yeah.
they've said to me, hey, we want to help fix that. For myself, I think the motivation to discover something new,
Yeah.
whether it's through storytelling or whether it's through designing games or working with technology to cast a different light on a problem, I think that's been more my motivation, to tell you the truth. Like, if I'd wanted just to be a writer, I would be doing what most writers in Vancouver do.
Right.
They're kind of gigging, they're pitching, they're working their scripts, they're doing short films. And that's interesting to a point. But to me, it's always been about, it's why I got into games as a writer initially, back in the time when that was kind of an exotic thing to have a writer in a video game, because there were very few and far between.
Right.
But it was a new medium. It was a chance to do things in a new way. And I think that's been more my throughput is, what is maybe the next thing? And how can we, not sort of prove conventional wisdom's wrong, but discover a new right? Because we did a study with SFU,
Yeah.
with our smart playground system. And we found that if you compare health outcomes from a Biba playground and a normal play environment, for the kids, it's 40% higher. Like their heart rate's
Is it really
higher.
that much higher?
I was surprised. I
Wow.
was frankly because you can't really fudge a study. It's university. They got to do their thing.
That's right.
It was markedly higher, and kids were playing longer, more often, more intensely. And so these are all the things that we wanted as a benefit. That was the innovation. Like, hey, if you give a child a goal, you structure a game, they're going to play the game. And in so doing, they're going to get more benefits. I mean, if I had to sit here and do calisthenics, I would not do it for very long before I would be quite bored.
That's right.
But if we went to play basketball, play one-on-one for a bit, you're a Lakers guy, I'm a Celtics guy.
That's right.
We would probably play longer and harder and get a much better burn without realizing it, because the game is abstracting our mental state. We're suddenly in the game mode, not in the counting the push-ups mode. And that, I think, gets you into a much more positive flow. So that was kind of our trick with Biba, is like, get kids into flow. Keep them there.
You know, without giving away the corporate strategy and you know, what the next few quarters or the years ahead brings, you know, the obvious question too, and you talk about Pokemon Go, we talk about, you know, geocaching, and there is this innate desire to want to bring those two worlds together, getting out there and where screen time is not detrimental to good activity and health. But you're in Canada. You're going to get bad weather. It's going to be cold. There's other parts in the world that share the same seasonal changes we do. Talk to me about play gyms, indoor climbers. Is surely something like this is on your radar, and could this be the new frontier? Anything you can tell us on that? Like, why be limited to the outdoor playground?
Well, outdoor play is great.
Yeah.
Most communities have them.
Yeah.
And they're kind of, you know, the last public commons where people come together to do things. And if you're there with your kid and I'm there with my kid, we have a bond, right?
Yeah.
So that seemed like a good place to start. But I mean, your intuition is correct. We've just signed a deal with a company that will take us into indoor play spaces worldwide.
So good.
So like shopping malls, there's one opportunity in the Middle East right now where they use shopping malls in a very different way than we do. Because of the extremes in temperature, they become their jogging courses and their places of socialization.
That's
and
right.
Commerce is secondary. So we're a really good fit there. But we've also had conversations with cruise ship lines about, you know, almost gamifying how a cruise ship would work. So you can have an exploration of the ship itself that also teaches the kids where their life vests are, where their safety precautions should be, what they have to do to be a good passenger. You can gamify all that and still give them an activity that is safe and healthy and, you know, gets them, you know, doing something that's beneficial in other ways.
Right.
So we have had these conversations. We've talked with one NBA team about how they're trying to gamify their arena, the new arena that they're getting built.
Oh, cool.
So it's like, you know, there's lots of places.
Can you tell us who it is?
Probably shouldn't at this stage. I wouldn't want to queer the pitch, but
No problem.
But there are people that are saying, like, how do we? It's not the Lakers. I'm sorry.
That would have been amazing.
Right state, wrong team.
Right.
But people are saying, like, how do we gamify these experiences for kids to create more stickiness, where people will stay in our space longer, and parents and families find a different way to interact with what we're creating.
Yeah.
That it creates a beneficial outcome. And we think it's that stickiness that really counts. Anytime there's wait time, right, where there's families that are like sort of stuck in a mode and they need to fill the air, I think there's a chance to gamify that.
I have to ask you, we've just launched, a year ago, Vancouver Film School launched a VR and an AR design program.
Yeah.
We're really excited by that. That's it. You know, the belief by so many people is this is the new frontier of gaming. But of course, any time there's innovation, new space, you're going to have critics. VR's had critics for a long time, or rather a long run that could probably even go back to early Nintendo.
Oh yeah,
you know,
yeah.
It never quite took. Speculation on the new PS5. Well, I'm not sure of how official this is, but it looks like it will not include the VR input, and there was some debate. Is VR, in your estimation, can they get there? Is it? Or we just need to get it right, or is this going to be like Google Glass and someone's got to put it away for decades, maybe forever, as opposed to AR, which maybe is the happier medium? What's your take on that whole space?
Well, AR I think is here.
Yeah.
Right now, more or less, people are
fairly proven, bankable.
Yep.
Yeah.
Low threshold.
Yeah.
Easy to get into.
Right.
Not distract. A lot of the problems with VR don't exist. VR, I think we've wanted VR to come for a while. Like, we all say that. This is where we all want to live in. Like, you know, have you ever read the book Snow Crash?
Of course,
we want to live in that world, right?
Of course,
we want that world.
Yes,
but I think we're not quite there yet because of the hardware. Like, it's funny. I'm working on a VR project right now.
Do you mean the hardware, the price point, or both?
Both.
Yeah.
Right. Both, and also just the creation of the sensory experiences. I've seen things in VR that are literally like, oh wow, jaw dropping, right?
Oh yeah.
And I've seen things that are like, not quite there. Right?
But even Xbox is doesn't look like they've officially announced they're not pursuing it. It's not so much an abandonment as it's no longer a rev stream, which tells me that either PlayStation's got to double down on it or somebody.
People
does.
made some big investments in the VR space a few years ago.
Yeah.
Right. And now I think they may be thinking we had a little bit of exuberance.
That's
maybe
right.
They're pulling back a bit. You know, it's funny you mentioned Google Glass. I actually did this really great kind of prototype with Google Glass a few years ago.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, we really have something. This is great. And then that night on the Daily Show, they did a little skit lampooning Google Glass, and it's great. And so I said, we're dead.
We're done.
Put it away. No one's going to touch this now. It's over.
Yeah.
But I'm doing a VR project right now, as a matter of fact. Kind of a side of the desk thing. But I think...
Of course it's the side of your desk.
Yeah,
Only Matt Toner would be doing a VR thing on the side of his desk. Can you say much about it?
Yeah. I mean, there may be a chance to work with the school in it.
Cool.
Which would be kind of cool. I think installation-based VR can be powerful because then that removes a lot of the constraints. You can really focus on the experience, and the user can kind of approach it with zero preconceptions, zero investment, and really live something different. So what we're working on right now with a friend of mine in Berlin is a virtual reality reconstruction or remodeling of their Holocaust memorial, which they have in the center of Berlin. It's like this. I'm not sure if you guys would have seen this, but it's this big site with 2,000 stone coffins, basically.
Jesus.
And as you walk into it, the coffins get higher and higher until they go from being like this high to being like 12 or 15 feet high. And it gets darker and colder and silent. And the whole idea is, I mean, it's meant to work on an abstract level.
Yeah.
But it's powerful.
Jesus.
And of course, not everyone can experience that. But I think in VR, this is our proposition. Can we recreate that into a mobile exhibit that could go to schools, for example, and let teenagers that maybe there's a remarkably low level of Holocaust education in the States, for example.
Yeah.
Remarkably low. Let them experience something in a real way. Instead of looking at black and white newsreel footage from the 30s and 40s about the Holocaust, put them in it, in this memorial. Let them wander through this place and give them that kind of very different immersive experience. I think that's the kind of thing today that VR can do super well.
Is it, in your estimation, taking away all the other practical, commercial applications and healthcare and all those other places where VR could do tremendous things, looking really just at the industry here from an entertainment perspective, games, movies, films, as storytellers, there is an interest in, can we get to the first VR film? And we have, I believe there's been a couple, but they're not mainstream yet.
Yeah.
You're a bit of a futurist, and I'm really curious about if you think we're going to see that day where I can, whether I'm at home or I go somewhere, I can put on the headset and be in the movie, and VR could fulfill its promise. Do you see that happening, or is it just too big?
It'll happen.
You think so?
I definitely think so. And the reason why is we've already pioneered some of the techniques in nonlinear narrative in video games.
Right.
Like when I was here, I came to the film school after the dot crash. And I've been in the tech space, online in New York for a while. And I came here because video games were popping in Vancouver. And so I wanted to cross over from media to media. And it struck me that the way we tell stories in film, let's say, is you've got a universe of possibilities and you tell one of those. That's your 3-act structure. You pick the most interesting dramatic thing, and there it is. That's your film. And you watch it through that one lens. Yeah. And then you're done, like Uncut Gems. That's the film. Games or nonlinear narrative gives us this chance to explore what's behind the door, so to speak, right? Do things in a different way. So if you can take these techniques that we figured out already, Netflix is kind of reinventing the choose your adventure thing. I guess they're being sued because of it, but whatever.
Yeah, with varying success, but you got to start somewhere.
Totally,
and I dig that.
I think that's the potential. Is having and the storytelling form would have to change, and maybe Uncut Gems is not a bad example because you have this one character that you're really studying. Through these different filters. So, could you tell a 3-act structured narrative in VR? I'm not sure it would work.
And I mean, with your writing background, I think you probably see those non-linear pathways maybe better than most, or that could be exciting, and at the same time, it could be a really daunting task for any storyteller to figure out if this character's arc on a traditional linear model goes from beginning, middle to end. Now you have all these alternate realities that can take it from a comedy to a tragedy with the blink of an eye, and I wonder if that would be so cool, but the cost of that would be enormous.
You might have to look backwards into theater to find the answer. I'll give you a really trite example. Have you ever heard of the show Tony and Tina's Wedding?
Of course.
Right. And that's immersive theater. You walk up and the actors are in the moment and they riff with you. And there's another one in New York right now. It's, I'm going to get it wrong. It's an installation-based project that's based on Macbeth, I think.
Oh, wow.
Right? Which is almost like a horror thing you go into. Yeah. And they put audiences through every 45 minutes or something. And you walk through and explore the space. And the story that I take away is different than the story you take away because we're kind of following a different path and engage with these actors and moments and vignettes they've created. And it's all driven by what's happening in the moment. So the VR narrative might have more in common with improvisational theater, let's say, than a strictly scripted narrative okay, we've got the shot, moving to the next shot. you have to allow for exploration, and you have to bound it so it's not a limitless void of possibilities, because there is a finite amount of attention. So it might start with smaller explorations, like smaller character studies maybe, or simple, puzzles, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
escape
yeah.
room style maybe. And that might be where it comes from. But where it's going to go, it's going to be a truly different form of storytelling. A lot of linear storytellers are going to really have their minds blown when they try to wrestle with that, right?
I think so. Talking with Matt Toner, CEO of Biba. How do I describe Biba? What category do you put yourself? Do you put yourself into mobile gaming? Do you put yourself into interactive gaming, experiential? What category would you put Biba in, Matt?
We wrestle with that. We wrestle with that one a little bit. We've in some filters we're a data science company. Believe it or
Sure.
not, right? Because we're actually able to mine out what the play patterns are for playgrounds, and no one's been able to do this before, but we actually have that information. It's one of the first things people from some major American cities came to us and said, "Listen, can you tell us what's happening in the playground?" And I said, "Well, yes, some things," and because the best they could do was send people out with clickers,
Right.
to count.
Yeah.
Like, oh, slide, swing, and there's some drawbacks to observational methodology. Let's put it that way. So we have a data science filter. We have a game filter, right? There's this digital wellness layer. So we're a little hard to define exactly where we would fit. But I think we're really I really think at our best, we're in the smart play space. We're in the connected play space. And this can cover things from smart playgrounds, which is what we do,
Yeah.
to like a smart doll for a child.
Right.
Or, a racing car that actually has some choice about how it's going to interact with you via the iPad or via your phone or something. I went to a conference in Los Angeles last summer to give a little talk, and some of the things are doing with connected play, with smart toys,
Yep.
right? It's really exciting. It's very different. I mean, it's almost
But it's hit and miss too, right? Like you
Oh,
get the
yeah.
and you've spoken at South by Southwest. You've spoken at major film festivals. I mean, you've spoken at Comic-Con. You are really an authority on this, and so I want your take on even when you start moving into toys, an area that I'm really passionate about. I got two kids. We love toys. We saw with limited success, two major companies, Disney and Lego, both make this attempt to bring the toys into the technology. And the promise of it early on was, wow, this looks amazing. Boom, they don't make it. On the flip side, we're seeing all sorts of things like AR Hot Wheels racing around a track that aren't even there in your own living room. And again, the promise of that could be incredible. It doesn't quite take off. Are you conscious? You must be conscious of those things. Do you feel that there are some golden rules that we have learned, at least this far in 2020, that thou shalt not attempt to, cross the streams, as they would say in
Right.
Ghostbusters, or is it just constantly trying to see what sticks? Would you have guessed that both Disney and Lego would have seen such, I would say probably at the end of the day, colossal failures? They did not continue their interactive toy and tech line. Do you learn from that, or is it a bit of a scramble?
I think we find the bigger companies, they have the budgets, they have the push to really drive products and and experiences. And when they hit, they're huge. But they have a different decision-making filter, I guess, because they're so large.
Yeah.
And I think of the projects you're referring to with like the Disney stuff, for example, like the Iron Man glove and things like that. There's some really, we thought they were quite interesting. But
Totally.
I do think real innovation comes from smaller entities, creators and small companies, people that are only into that one thing, that one innovative trick. So that's thing one. I think scale can work against you to be purely creative. I think being smaller and being more of, I don't want to say an auteur, but maybe more like an auteur, maybe works more in your favor. Ideally, maybe with a band of happy campers that are aligned and in enough technology, enough investment to make it really viable. The second thing, though, is understanding the medium you're working in, right? So back in because some mediums are going to work for this stuff better than others, right? Like things like trading cards or placemats in fast food restaurants could be really good because they can over-deliver something interesting, right?
Yeah.
Whereas something with like a Hot Wheels thing, okay, the expectation is much higher.
That's right.
I did back in 2011, I guess. I did a mixed reality comic book. So the panels were scannable, right? And we also integrated like Twitter accounts and things like that to connect to different characters. So you could read the comic book, but also take these digital diversions, right? So early days of the smartphone, early days of like scanning codes and stuff like that. That's the form I think worked pretty well because people when they're reading a comic book, you you can be a page turner, but you can also get lost in the artwork, and then you can be curious about things and then drill a bit deeper. The reader sets the tempo. Right.
But on that note too, do you think QR codes are they here to stay? They're up and down.
Nobody likes QR codes. Nobody likes QR codes.
But what's better? I mean,
augmented reality markers work a lot better if you ask me.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, augmented reality marker could be, like the logo on your baseball cap.
Sure.
Right. We made AR T-shirts for Biba, where you just, the computer vision reads the image and then animates it, brings it to life.
Sure.
So the child on the playground is actually part of the game.
Actually, Colin Giles and I went to an art show in Toronto. It was all AR art.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
This was like a year ago, and we went and you would hold up over the art, and the art would come alive.
Perfect,
through that experience. So I know exactly what you mean, and I think people are comfortable and they want to put their phone up. I think they're prepared to look through that lens. It doesn't have to necessarily be attached to your face.
Yeah.
But do you find that to be a limitation too, especially what you're doing at Biba? Like at a certain point, someone's got to hold that phone.
Correct.
Unless you're going to get into a harness and a strap and that whole thing. Where do you see the new? Are you just going to be great and keep perfecting what you're doing, or do you want to eventually go hands free in some capacity?
Smartphones are pretty pervasive nowadays. Like even low income families have smartphones.
Yeah.
Right. And we make our tech backwards compatible. So if you're from a less privileged family, it doesn't matter. The games work just as well for you as they do for the rich kid across the street.
And that's huge.
Right? Oh,
that's
yeah.
Huge.
Especially in the States. Like, we see a disproportionate number of our play sessions coming from less affluent neighborhoods, which kind of tells me there's maybe a bit of a digital gap that still needs to be corrected. Or that the richer kids have more options and the poor kids, maybe like Crab Park here, playground, not too far away.
That's right. Yeah, just around the corner.
That is like the only playground for these kids in the downtown east side. So they're going to be heavier users than, Chad and Buffy that live in like a fancier neighborhood because they've got the horseback riding lessons, soccer camp, whatever else, right? So this is why I think we're seeing this trend towards these public spaces, and having a smartphone can be an equalizer. So, but people are more used to using them now. Like I think they're okay with this.
Yeah,
they're okay with whipping it out and doing stuff. That's fine.
Yeah.
We talk about Google Glass. Like I think the problem is we haven't got a headset yet that just feels natural and comfortable and attractive, and people choose to wear it.
Right.
Maybe in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Right. But not today. The phone is fine. We have other problems to solve for us. And I think the problem is when you over-engineer an experience like in a playground, you start to drive down your usage.
Yeah.
Because people don't want to strap on things like that. They're in a playground, right? If you're in an amusement park or maybe a retail center, you can raise the bar a bit on what's required, right? Or for a virtual reality museum, you can actually say, okay, put on the headset, put on the backpack. We're going to put you in this algorithmically generated exhibit, and you're going to have a trip.
Yeah.
Right? So there's gradations, right? And I think that as creators, whether you're doing game-like experiences or storytelling experiences, these are new media that the rules really aren't set yet. There's some guidelines maybe. There's a lot of experimentation. But I think there's never been a better time to be involved in the creation of story and experience. Like you guys probably saw a few years ago season 1 of True Detective, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. And 2 and 3. I mean, what a...
Yeah, I stopped after season 1, but I hear season 3 is pretty good.
Season 3 is solid. Two's okay.
Great.
3's great.
Yeah.
1 is still, I think, the benchmark.
I'm so far behind on my watching.
Yeah. You got work to do.
But the character Rusty Cole
in
season 1 talks about at one point how maybe sentience was a big evolutionary mistake, that humans have this ability to dream that they're significant and to imagine things that don't exist. He sort of has this whole pessimistic riff on things. But if that's the truth, if we are the species or the beings that are actually able to imagine and tell stories and imagine fantastic worlds that don't exist and bring those lessons back to our real lives, it's almost like we have an obligation to do that, to be storytellers and to be creators. And the technology that we're working with now has made those dreams more easily apprehensible and shared than ever. I mean, historically, I could write a story about a fantastic place and give you the book, and you could read it and you'd imagine what you think I'm describing.
That's right.
And there's a power to that. But now I can put you in that place and it will look exactly the way I imagined it. Like imagine the Avatar movie as VR. Like it kind of blew me away in the theaters, like saying, wow, we have it's all processing time now. Dragons flying through mountains in the sky. Wow.
That's right.
We're almost at the point where we can put you there. So this, I think, is sort of the magic of being a storyteller today in 2020. We've never had these tools before. We've never had audiences that are ready to embrace them. I think the challenge is for us to rise up and tell those stories.
I think you're absolutely right. And talking with Matt Toner, CEO of Biba, from a perspective of even the trends, identifying where we're at in terms of the linear history of storytelling, 3D as a movie experience. Has it found its footing? Is it here to stay? Is it a fad? You know, you mentioned Avatar. For me, that made the film. That was for so many people really our first true experience. And now I feel like I search for the non-3D version of them for any number of reasons. Are they getting it wrong? Are they getting it right? Is it, you know, again, what do you think of that as a part of the storytelling component of a film? Do you think that's going to stick around?
I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head. I think that in some cases it is an essential part of that story being told.
Yeah.
It's an augmentation that makes absolute sense and is transformative, and you love it. I think I've seen other films where I'm like, didn't really need it.
I don't know if Captain America needed it.
It's a good example.
I don't know.
Because you have to play with the lighting and stuff, and it's kind of like...
I don't know if the shield coming at me
exactly.
was required.
But I think we have a tendency with technology to kind of fire hose a bit.
Yeah.
Like once we get the new tools, like, hey, this tool's great for everything.
Yeah.
And then we pair it back to what it's really good for. So I think, you know, there'll always be people that want to kind of gimmick things up. And actually, then there's some films that are good for that reason. Like, you know, remember the original, you know, maybe you don't remember, like the original 3D films, like back in the day?
I
like
do,
sharks and stuff jumping out and super kitschy.
I think, you know,
if you want that,
I think I saw it the first time I saw it when I was a kid was Disney World. And this is going back probably like 30 years. I bet it was that long ago. I went with my family, my mom and my dad and my sisters. And I remember the Muppets Experience it was the first time you sort of saw that. But what was unique about it, where I don't think they've ever, even to this day, met the true impact of it, was I remember Fozzie Bear has this flower on his lapel there, and he squirts the water, and the water comes out, and then they figured out a way to put a little hose in front of your and a bit of water hit you. And so I remember my first time that it was truly, you know, the five senses. And so that to me went, okay, 3D is that. And then what happened was a purely visual and auditory version of that was replicated across theaters, and it never quite hit. Although the majesty of Avatar, I think alone was so overwhelmingly incredible.
For that time. Like, it's an older film.
You want to get back to it. Yeah.
But at that time, 10 years ago?
Sure.
It was,
yeah.
It just kind of, it put people back in the chairs. It's like, wow, look at that. Like,
and in IMAX, it was crazy. Do you remember it in IMAX?
I didn't see it in IMAX. I saw Interstellar in IMAX, and that was like...
And I mean, he's waited 10 years. I don't think 3D got any better. Do you think it'll...
Nothing I can point to.
You know, I wonder if it'll...
It's like craftsmanship. Like, how do you deploy that technique to make your story better?
Yeah.
And there's some people that are better at than others, and I'm looking forward to whatever comes next, but I guess we'll have to see. But this comes back to virtual reality again, like, you know, environmental storytelling, which is something we talk about in video games for ages. Like, how do you, just the design of your level, tell the player in a subconscious way all they need to know about what's happening next, right? Again, VR affords us this. Like, we're debating with this Holocaust project, should we play with temperature? Because it's a controlled space.
Sure.
Like, should we play with ambient sound and lighting? Like, what can we do before we inject any narrative into it whatsoever?
Right.
To completely tell the story, to completely situate the audience member in the mood and the moment that we want to create without saying a word. Like, how far can we go in this new immersive environment?
What an exciting time for that too, right? I mean, the fact that you can go, could we and should we, it's really a case of, and how effective can we get it, and convincingly can we do it so that before you've even said a word, the artificial environment around you is telling that story. You're really on the frontier of that, and I think that's got to be a lot of fun. But I wonder, do you carry the weight each day of where intersection has to ultimately deliver to, you know, results on the bottom line, or do you feel free to innovate and create because you've at least got the success of Biba's current app model behind you? You know you're getting it right. Are you gonna tweak it a lot or a little, or not mess with it at all? What's the prediction for the future?
Well, just in case my investors come across the podcast, we're heavily focused on the bottom line.
Of course.
Having said that,
you
have to push the envelope on things. And I think what's great about it, what I will say is this: what I've found to be a strength of the Canadian system for kind of media, right, is there are people and places, institutions that are willing to give you a little bit of money to play around with, to experiment. Right? Before you need to make a big commitment. Like, you know, could you make a Holocaust memorial in virtual reality a successful profit-making enterprise from day one? No. Right?
Right.
But here in Canada, you can actually find people that are willing to work on it for below rate because they're drawn to the project. You can find bodies like, you know, Creative BC, for example, that's one to push a bit of money into different things to make them work.
Yep.
It's a good system for artists and creators to mess around with. before they go. And you can learn by working for companies that are doing bigger projects by just being a guy working at animation studio.
Of course,
on a big project, and it's not yours, but you can learn a lot by being a guy in the trenches at Electronic Arts.
Right.
A guy in the trenches at Bardell or one of the other companies here in town. So it really is a great, unique place. That's what drew me here, was the chance to be part of this intersection of these different storytelling talents. And again, the film school, and not just to pump you guys, but this film school really turned out to, in my career at least, play a pretty pivotal role as a crossing point for a lot of very talented professionals that are working in different strands of media. A lot of them have gone through these hallways as students and as faculty between things and whatnot, and it really is an incredible network. And you wouldn't find that in other places, I can tell you for sure.
I can't agree with you more on that, and I think I walk through these halls every day, and we see the alumni success and your success at Biba, Matt, and your whole history of the work you've done, as a student, as a member of the faculty now in the private sector doing it. It inspires a lot of students here. I really can't say enough about how important the work you're doing at Biba is to where I think gaming is going. And as a parent, I've got a real vested interest in the frontier that you are trying to push forward through. So I wish you the best of luck. Will you come back and do the show again? I would really love to talk to you, even a year from now and hear about some of the cool stuff that you can't talk about yet, because I think this is the stuff that's, as a storyteller, it's going to get people lit up. Will you come back and do the show again?
Anytime.
I really appreciate it. Talking to Matt Toner, the CEO of Biba. Time Magazine thinks this guy is a big deal, and his whole team over at Biba. Fast Company Magazine thinks this guy and his team is a big deal. I'm going to put a link to those articles, and you can hear more about Biba down below. You can check it out. Make sure you download their app. It is so cool. Thanks for doing the show, my friend.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Great to have you on, and we'll talk to you soon.